right, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today as we announce the next step in our ongoing efforts to modernize our police force, to reduce violent crime, and to reduce homicides in our city, and to build better relationships between the police and the community. Reducing violence remains the #1 priority of my administration, and a key goal of this administration is growing Baltimore by 10,000 families over the next decade. And in order to grow a city, you have to both attract new residents, but I think most importantly, we have to give those residents who are here more reasons to stay. And we cannot grow Baltimore without making our city a safer place, so that new residents can see our city as a safe destination and a place where they can raise a family, and that families who are already here see their communities getting better each and every day. For the past several years, I've been working to develop a series of reforms that will bring lasting change to communities in Baltimore that need it the most. We have come a long way. 2014 ended with reductions in overall violent crime and homicides, as well as excessive force lawsuits against the city, while at the same time we saw increases in the number of residents reaching out to the police with information to help us solve crimes. We've received confirmation that our strategy of focusing on violent repeat offenders is the best way to fight crime and to build trust with our communities. Just as we saw reductions in violent crime and homicides, we also saw reductions in numbers of arrests that were made, which was previously a source of tension between the police and the community. By any measure, Baltimore is moving in the right direction in the crime fight. Our success to date has not happened by accident. We are better off today thanks in large part to the hardworking men and women of the Baltimore City Police Department who remain committed to this city and who remain committed to building stronger relationships between them and the communities that they serve. And it's important to remember that they put their lives on the line. Each and every day they show up to work, and they do that for all of us. And it's important that as we move forward in the crime fight, we provide them with the tools and the resources to more effectively do their job. And I'm grateful for the service of the men and women of the police department, and I'm excited about the possibilities this new schedule brings to our city. Today marks the beginning of a new era where police officers will have more support to get their job done, and city residents will see more officers on the beat and working hard to take criminals off the streets. I've long said that in order for this department to continue to improve, we have to have a police commissioner who is empowered to make the changes necessary for growth. Under this new schedule, Commissioner Batts will have the power to quickly and more efficiently flood neighborhoods experiencing increased violence. He will be able to more effectively implement strategies that allow our police officers to spend more time getting to know our residents in Baltimore's communities instead of frantically responding to calls for service for an entire shift. Our officers will now come to work knowing that they have more support in the field as they work to make Baltimore a safer city. We are definitely moving in the right direction. But as I say that with a very keen understanding that we have a lot more work to do. Every resident in this city deserves to feel safe in their own home and in their communities. And my charge going forward is to continue pressing hard for bold reforms that keep us on the right path, because the status quo has failed us for far too long. I will not be satisfied until we fully mend police-community relations, eliminate violent crime, and I will not be satisfied until we can pride ourselves on being the safest big city in our nation. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to Commissioner Batts, who will speak in more detail about the new schedule. Commissioner?
Madam Mayor, thank you so very much. I'd like to thank the mayor.
I'm sorry, and I forgot, I just can't stay up here. I forgot to thank specifically the members of the community who have been your right hand, my right hand in this work, and thank you all for coming. I know this is, some of us remembered it was Purple Friday. It was Purple Friday, a very busy weekend, and I'm glad that you're all here with me.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it. There again, I'd like to applaud the mayor, our CRC presidents, our FOP president, and my command staff as they stand tall in our partnership as we move forward. You know, I reflect back on sitting down with the mayor once I was hired to do the job, and one of the things that she said is that she wanted a more efficient, well-run police department. We're on our way to make that happen. For decades, police staffing in Baltimore was on a linear level, simply just static. We had 3 shifts, same amount of officers, no science behind it, just even distribution of officers throughout those shifts. No matter the season, time of day, day of the week, the deployment of the same number of officers on all 3 shifts all year long did not change. It was very stagnant for us. As you can imagine, we're a little busier on Friday night in July than we were on Tuesday nights in January. And so because you have different variables, you should have a police department that goes with that workload. We will now be able to deploy in a smarter, more efficient manner based on empirical data, actual workload, and driven by calls for service. And so we're not doing this randomly. We're putting those officers where we need them at the time that we need them based on the seasons that when they change. Having officers in the right place at the right time is a fundamental aspect to real crime reduction in Baltimore and the basics of hotspot policing theory. The previous work schedule and how officers were deployed was stipulated by the employment contract between management and the union as a whole. And what I can say, and I have to applaud the president of the union, is that, and that's Gene Ryan. He actually has a name back there. Gene Ryan, is that we've come to a collaborative process to build a schedule to replace this outdated method and to bring science into play and empirical data. It was through his leadership and the leadership of Bob Cherry sitting down and being able to work through this that we're going to have a more efficient run police organization. Beginning this weekend on Sunday, we'll move to 4 new shifts, which are 10-hour-long shifts. Why that's significant is the 10-hour shifts afford us the ability to overlap shifts and put more resources on the streets at the time that we need those resources. We will be putting more officers on the streets during those times based on calls for service and workload. We have the ability to rapidly shift officers if we see emerging crime trends, and we've always had this. But when we've done it in the past, we've done it at the expense to the taxpayer. So we used a lot of overtime to address spiking crime that was taking place. My goal and my wish is to reduce the overtime rate in which we use. What I can say is as we've experimented in pilot programs going into November and December in those months, what we've seen is pretty close to a 21% reduction just for those 2 months of moving officers to the times where we need them. And I have to applaud Deputy Commissioner Paul Meir, who has overseen those things, who has gotten those results. All of these benefits will help us to continue to reduce crime in Baltimore and become a more efficiently run police organization. Let me tell you the benefit of what I'm most excited about. This new schedule will allow sergeants, lieutenants, and captains to have greater latitude. And what does that mean? That means that these officers have the ability now to get out of their car, to go to community meetings, engage with the community, and the community has made it very clear time and time again, we want walking beats. The CRC presidents behind me, who are probably making faces behind me, have said multiple times, we want walking beats, and it's clear that that's what we want. So with this movement of police officers to be at the times where we need them will give us greater flexibility to get officers to community meetings, get officers out of cars, get officers on walking beats, get officers engaging with young people on the streets of Baltimore as a whole. We're now starting to build a problem-oriented policing structure, and what that means is that we'll have a sophisticated structure to have officers respond to calls and deal with calls in a greater degree, not dealing with just the symptomology, but dealing with the causative factors that take place within our community. So we not only drop our crime rate, we leave a community that is better off when the time is for us to move to the next location. Now, with this new process that we're starting, there will be bumps along the way. There is no doubt in my mind that we're going to have challenges. It's not going to work perfectly, but I am not going to get upset because we have little hiccups that are going to take place as we work this schedule out. I'm looking forward to the increased police resources that are there. I am looking forward to the reduction in overtime that takes place. I'm looking forward to a police department that moves faster, quicker, and deals with things in a more bolder way, and that we use innovation. Because with that free time, police officers have the opportunity to be more creative and innovative to address problems as a whole. Are there any questions? Well, I was going to ask if there's any questions that we can answer, but before that I have to say go Ravens, and bring up the President of the Union, Gene Ryan.
Good afternoon. Madam Mayor, Commissioner Batch, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The FOP Lodge 3 is proud to be a partner with the City of Baltimore in this new contract because we feel it's another step to strengthening a very vital relationship. Negotiations required to make this contract happen were often very difficult. However, each struggle strengthened the resolve to bring us to stand here today. It's a good contract for all parties involved, and one of which we believe will go a long way towards improving the city of Baltimore and improving departmental morale. We extend sincere gratitude to all parties involved in bringing this contract to fruition, especially the leadership of Commissioner Batts and his command staff, as well as the mayor and her staff. The contract also includes the new work schedule, which will provide more officers on the street, especially during times of high crime periods, as well as allowing our personnel to spend extra time with their families. And everybody knows a happy cop is a productive cop. And statistics have shown that law enforcement officers have increased time with their families, work higher morale, which then takes much increased productivity, and I've already mentioned that. So I'm excited and looking forward to a continued mission to protect the city of Baltimore and its citizens, and a strong relationship with the mayor and the police commissioner in making the city of Baltimore a safer place to live and play. Thank you.
You want to bring up Jack? Okay. I would like to introduce Mr. Jack Baker, one of our city's leaders in the Community Relations Council. Jack?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm from the Southern District Community Relations Council, and behind me we have the Central, the Northeast, and the Northern. A few had to stay at work. I just wanted to mention a few things about, we're talking about teamwork here with the mayor and her office, and of course the commissioner, we work our butts off for him. And now Mr. Ryan has allowed us to become a partner with the union. I mean, we're getting all of these people together to work together to make things safer. For the comment on the strategy, I think it's going to really work. Last night, I went to the Westport Neighborhood Association meeting, and I also had the post officer attend the meeting, plus an NSU officer. A lot of cops for a small meeting, but we got a lot accomplished. And we talked about the new plan. The neighborhood thought it was a fabulous idea. Actually, the cops did too. And they weren't being harassed because the commissioner wasn't there.
What are you trying to say?
They honestly felt that it was going to work. Now, if you ride around Westport last night, like at 8 o'clock, there wasn't a soul on the street. Of course, the weather played a big part. So I'll give it a little more time till it's a little warmer. But I am going to go back Sunday night, the first night of the new system. And I'm going to look to see if I find the same thing that I did last night. And I think most of the neighborhoods in the Southern, as I go to their meetings and explain to them this new system, of course, all of the cops will already know from our major, but we're going to get an opinion from all of these neighborhoods. Because remember, as I talk teamwork, all of the people who live in the city are part of that team. We can't do it without the citizens. We need them. And the councils will be working right with the cops, commissioner, we will, with him particularly, and the mayor. The Community Relations Council this year teamed up more so with the mayor than before, and we're meeting with her periodically now and her team. So we're getting more people on the street, and that is a good thing, because I go to neighborhoods from Curtis Bay to the harbor and over through Cherry Hill, over that area, Brooklyn, Curtis Bay. It's a big area. We've got 61,000 people that our major has to take care of. And each of the councils have to pitch in and do that too. I think we're in for a ride that's going to be a good one. And I hope I have the chance to tell you what I find as we go through this. And we will be reporting everything to the commissioner, of course, and to the mayor, so we can keep this going.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Thanks.
When you're talking about the great ride, you were talking about how the Ravens are going to beat New England tomorrow, right? Yeah.
So again, Jean, Jack, thank you very much, Commissioner. To our other CRC presidents, I certainly appreciate our working relationship and your leadership in your communities. I couldn't do it without you, so I'm very grateful. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
So, Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
effectively, I don't want to assume this, but are officers working 4 days and then taking 3 days off?
Yeah, it's a 410 schedule. It's 14-hour days, 3 days off, which part was one of the issues when I walked in the door. The union had addressed the quality of life for officers on the move, coming back all the time. It was wearing them down. I come from an organization for 28 years. We had a 410 schedule, and one of the things is that it allows us, it benefits the city because it helps to cut overtime. You have more officers on the street at the time that you need to have the officers on the street, but it also allows the quality of life for officers to take a deep breath, especially when you work in a busy city like Baltimore.
You talked about the,
Overlap.
yeah, and prior to this, the same number of officers every shift.
Yes.
That will no longer be the case, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, we had the same amount of officers at 4 a.m. in the morning or 5 a.m. in the morning that we did at 6 o'clock in the evening. Our workload usually goes up from about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, dramatically goes up until probably about midnight, then it starts making its way down. So you don't need as many officers on the street at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning. So we're shifting those officers at the times where we have the largest calls for service and the volume that is there.
Will they all be 410s, or will there still be some?
I'm sorry, one more time, I didn't hear you.
Was everybody going to be on
Is
the
everybody
410
410,
schedule?
or will you still have some that work 5 days, 8 hours? Just
The patrol, anyone in a patrol unit will be 410s. All detectives are still on 5-day work week.
What was it, Commissioner, in the old union contract that made it so difficult for you to, in order to?
I don't think it'll be difficult. That's not the correct word. It's just how it had been done for decades. And basically all it was 3 shifts, same amount of officers on 3 shifts. Now what we're doing is using empirical data, looking where those calls for service are, connecting with the VRO programs that we have, hotspot policing that we have, zone policing that we have, and putting those officers in those locations at the times where we're having those problematic times.
Commissioner, I had one other question.
Yes, sir.
When it was an 8-hour day,
Mhm.
say I was on a patrol shift, how much time spent just gearing up to get ready to get out on the street? And at the end of my shift, how much time spent on paperwork? I mean, how much real time do you spend?
It's hard to gear that, but the bigger problem for us is if you have 3 shifts and they're 8 hours, there's a time where officers are not out there on the streets. So you have to have officers making their way into the station to get the cars to go back out there. So there was gaps in times, and trust me that our clientele that we deal with out there were very much aware of that, and there were spikes that would take place. Just like with our districts, what I saw when I walked in the door is a number of our crimes were committed on those borderlines of our districts. So we're erasing the lines between the districts, we're erasing the lines on the shifts. We have overlapping shifts, so there's always someone that's going to be out there at some given point in time. So that's not as much of a critical factor of how long it takes them to get ready. The other piece that comes out of that is because we have overlapping is that we could do better roll call training. So when those officers come in for the roll call and we have attendants, we assign them to the post that they're going to, we could also take an extra 10 or 15 minutes to train them on changing laws, tactics, or anything else, so we have a better well-trained police force too at the same time.
Commissioner, you talked about bumps and challenges, and do you already anticipate, what do you foresee as a possible bump or challenge, and what have you done to try to work that out?
We've been sitting down, working this through for the last 6 months. We had to go through technology changes. We had to go through pay scale changes. We had to go through working schedules. So we worked those all through. We have projections, paperwork to know where we're going to deploy the officers. Where I've done this before at other places, although you tell the officers, you show the officers, they'll show up at the wrong place. They'll ask where I'm supposed to be, and so we're going to have to take their hands and guide them. We have a crisis center that's set up that if we have issues that go on, they'll make phone calls into those locations. We can address those bumps that are going to take place. And as much as we've planned, as much as we've gamed it out, as much as we've thought worst case scenario, something's going to come up that we don't anticipate, and the crisis center will be there to address those things.
Commissioner, you talked about technology changes. Are we talking new software for scheduling, that sort of thing?
Yes, we have to, in pay also. So the pay scale has changed and increased the pay, and I have to really thank the mayor, because when I went to her early on, I asked her, I want to step forward and find a way to pay our officers better. She stood her ground, and she supported us on that, so I have to applaud her on that. But also with that, we need a ongoing scheduling process and program that keeps track of all these resources that we're moving.
Commissioner, you talked about criminals paying attention to sort of the, times
Right.
when there was a lapse and so forth. Do do you anticipate that this schedule and the overlapping will change based on, could it change? I mean, if criminals pick up that there's fewer people happening.
Well, it won't dramatically change, and we've already started last year. One of the things that we saw and that we talked about as an executive team is that our clientele in Baltimore adapts very quickly. We'll do something, and within 2 weeks, they will adapt their conduct to what we're doing. So we started building in our strategies based on throwing them off constantly. So we're changing our strategies on a regular basis because we understand that we're not going to dramatically change the schedule, but what it does allow us to do is move smaller pieces around. We have more resources independently to do more things with, so I think that'll be a positive for us.
We have time for one more question.
I'd like to ask, in light of the incident that happened on Tuesday, a couple council members have said, are our city-owned buildings and police precincts safe enough? Is there a need for a comprehensive review? Do you feel secure that people who work and visit government buildings and precincts are safe?
For the police point in, I'll turn it over to the mayor. I'm always assessing security. That's something that is a high-profile issue for me. And this gives us greater opportunity. I've had a number of reports already done. We will continue to do that. Even after we correct some things that are out there, we will, within 30 days, 60, 90, 100, we'll continue to assess, change, and adapt. Much like I mentioned, our clientele adapts to us, we will continue to adapt.
I'm concerned about the security of our buildings as well, as the police commissioner is. And what I know is that we take it very seriously. You know, that we've already had an incident in Baltimore, albeit decades ago, but it was a very serious incident where someone came in with a gun. So we have increased security at City Hall, as well as security and security people and point people at many of our city-owned facilities. And my hope is that we will continue to work in partnership with the community, because many of these buildings, the public it's not just employees that are there that I depend on to say something if they see something, but also members of the public as well to help us, because I think it is important if we're going to have continuous operating government, that everyone who accesses government is a part of the process to make it safer. We're certainly doing our part with security assessments, but we also need help from the community who's out there as well. I mean, it should not be that we're talking about this incident at the same time there are these horrific incidents that we're seeing all over the world. We just know that we have to do better, and it's going to take the vigilance of all of us to make it so.
Mayor, Bishop, thank you very much.
Thank you.